The biggest change there is the skeleton and slider stuff, which we've been talking about for the last few weeks. I don't think that it's drastically different from uh, I don't think it's drastically different from the last test build, but there are a few additional changes. I think maybe I don't remember if the jaw shaper came in after that last test build. I know there's been some additional work on debugging some of the sliders, and we've also added some uh, sort of quasi scaling for wings and tails with avatar height. Um, so I think that addresses most, if not all, of the issues that we've been kicking around in the forum thread recently. But in any case, the plan is to have this be the one that we're going with going forward. We're hoping to get out to release candidate without any further changes. If there are major bugs, do let us know. It's not impossible that we would change them, especially something like if there's a regression relative to the release viewer or something where you've broken the handling of the original pre-Bento bones or something like that. That would definitely have to be fixed. But we're not going to be making more tweaks driven primarily by aesthetics at this point. I realize that just came out a few minutes ago. Probably nobody's had a chance to play with it yet, but as you do get a chance to poke around on it, do let us know, and feel free to post in the forum thread or whatever. Any questions or issues about the skeleton slider updates yet?
Best case scenario, what would be the timeline for doing RC and then full release, do you think, if there aren't any significant problems to worry about?
Well, let's see. So we don't have additional work scheduled for skeleton and slider. It's basically a question of when we can get a couple of remaining issues looked at. One that we're concerned about is that if you're doing software skinning, there seems to be an altitude-related effect where you get kind of distortions in the bones and the face kind of looks like it's distorting or melting. It's conceivable that if we can't fix that, without breaking performance, we would leave it that way and just encourage people to use hardware skinning. But obviously, it wouldn't be ideal. So we want to see if there's a reasonable fix for that. Do a little bit digging there. I think that's the main live issue that I'm aware of. Of course, it's always possible that other bugs will come in. So, what that means in terms of the timeline, assuming that we don't get any, crisis level concerns coming in on the skeleton, and we don't have other must-fix bugs showing up, I would hope that we could get it out, we get to RC this summer. I am going to be away a bit. I'm going to be out the next couple of weeks. We'll probably cancel the meetups for those weeks, although we'll continue to monitor the forum thread and the incoming bugs, and there will be some other folks working on this stuff on the QA side and so on. So I guess what I'm saying is that we never really know dates, and I can't commit to anything. But personally, I would love to get it out in August, and we'll see how that goes.
RC, you mean?
Yeah. RC. After it's in RC, you can't. It's much harder to predict the timeline because it's kind of in the queue with all the other viewer-related projects, right? You've got a bunch of RCs that are all kind of waiting for release at the same time. So, you need to basically the RC needs to be considered stable. We don't have new must-fix bugs showing up while it's in RC, and we need to get prioritized appropriately relative to other viewer work. So, the final release schedule is much harder to predict. but getting to RC is the next step. Soon TM, yeah, that sounds good.
Something goes into the RC, and are third-party viewers allowed to add it to their viewers and have them available?
I believe that's the policy. Once it's in RC, it's considered fair game to pull into third-party viewers, and hopefully the Firestorm folks and other folks will be picking it up then.
Awesome.
All right. Well, so that's Project Viewer update and schedule discussion. The other thing I have on the agenda for this week is the question about this avatar height business. Aki, I know you commented and filed a bug about this. What was happening before is that every so often, not very often, but not really predictably either, the avatar height would get recomputed. And every time the avatar height got recomputed, this is based on the body size calculation that we've talked about a few times. It's based on the state of a bunch of bones. And every time it gets computed, then that affects the avatar's vertical placement. It can go up or down. It's not quite the same thing as hover height, but it looks the same. Either way, the avatar is at a different height than it used to be. This used to be happening at kind of unpredictable intervals, and so it was giving us inconsistent results. You might see a different result looking at yourself versus what other people would see looking at you, and there wasn't really any predictability to when things would happen to get updated. It was basically at the mercy of when the visual params would get updated, which could be when you get an appearance message, or it could be when you are using some sort of relatively heavyweight mechanism like the alpha-based eye blink that causes a geometry update in the model, or various other things. So it used to be this would happen sort of unpredictably and not necessarily consistently. The change that I made now is that it happens constantly and predictably. Basically, the body size always gets updated based on the state of the joints, and what this gives you then is predictability and consistency. Everyone should be seeing the same height. There shouldn't be any surprises. On the other hand, this does mean that you can get a change of behavior from what you were before. If you were having a situation where the updates were kind of rare and weren't actually getting triggered too often, then something like an animation that was affecting the positions of these various bones could run more or less safely without seeming to cause any height issues. However, now if you're animating the positions or scales of the bones that are used in the body size calculation, then it's going to give you more of this kind of you get a kind of a slinky effect or something. The update now basically happens every idle update. It's happening all the time. If you haven't moved any of those joints, then you won't see any effect from it, right? The body size will get recalculated, but it will still be the same. But if something's happening to the joints as a result of an animation or of an attachment override, then it will modify it, and you'll see a change in the height.
I would actually say that rather than just a slinky effect, currently I notice it all the time. So for example, if I'm not zoomed out and cammed on something else, every frame of me sitting around here, my camera moves up and down, me just looking at the rest of you guys right now. So the world literally moves up and down. And then also if I walk around, it's much more pronounced.
Yeah, we haven't actually changed any of the logic for the way the camera works, but because the position can be getting updated more often, you may see the effect more often. I don't really know anything to do about this other than just to recommend being careful about animations that change the positions of those bones. I think as long as there's not an animation playing that changes the positions, you shouldn't have an issue. Like with your wyvern now, which is sort of bobbing up and down. I think that's and I don't have the data for this, but I think what's probably going on there is that you've got an animation that's changing the positions of I don't know if it's the pelvis or the neck or whatever. If you could put the wyvern into the pose you wanted and then animate it by changing the rotations in the legs, basically making the legs kind of stand up and squat down without actually changing the position component, I don't think you would see the same kind of effect. I think it would it would hold a lot more steady. Can't export an animation that translates some bones but only rotates others. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the issue is there. Don't you have the option to translate or rotate any of them? Yeah, there's also the imposter issue where about half of the model can, it depends on the percentage depends on the dimensions of the model, but there's a bounding box calculation error for imposters where you can get a bunch of your model chopped off. That's not related to these changes, but it's or even to Bento, it's just a long-standing issue.
I'm just gonna hop on voice because it's a lot to type. The issue is that when you export an animation, either it contains translations or it doesn't. So even if there's only like 1 or 2 bones in the animation that you need to actually translate, the whole animation, every bone that you're moving is going to contain position location. So if it's updating based on when the head and skull and all that changed position, any animation that contains translation is going to update the positions of those on like every frame.
Yeah, and this is with Avastar?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not really an issue if there's translations in the animation as long as the values aren't changing, right? If you translate at the beginning of the animation and then just, keep repeating that same value every time, then, as far as the body size calculation goes, that's equivalent to not changing it at all, because it's just going to keep setting it to the same value.
Maybe I'm hearing this incorrectly, but is it that you're saying you can't have an animation with? Well, I'm reading it, so it says you translate some bones but only rotate others. We can't do that. We can do that.
You
Blender
can do that inside of Blender, yes, but once you import the animation, everything contains translations. I dare you to right now make an animation that rotates an arm and moves some other bone, and then change to another set of joints like a small avatar, and play that animation, and you're going to see that arm jutting out to the size that it was in the default avatar when you animated it.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding this. I'm not sure.
Maybe so.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, this is a kind of a tool question that this is something that's hard to do. Is this Avastar that all these animations are getting made in?
For me,
yes.
Okay. Yeah, as far as I know, there's not any fundamental issue with including just rotations or just translations in an anim file. It's so I think it may be more of a tool question. But as far as the height calculation stuff goes, it's not really a matter of whether there's an animation track for for the position. It's just a question of whether the value actually changes over time. As long as it's steady, then you shouldn't get glitches related to the height, on the relative to the ground changing.
I haven't had a chance yet to play with the new changes, so I'll have to do that later.
Yeah, of course, unfortunately, I'm not an Aerostar pro at all. I can't really speak to the kind of upstream side of things.
There's another issue that came up in the after hours of the last meeting that is sort of on the same topic. It's to do with the way that joint position adjustments are applied, the sequence of that happening. I guess if you play an animation or have a mesh with a joint position on it, and then you play, and then you adjust the shape afterwards, the shape will transition your bones, even though you've, maybe modified the joint position with an animation or a custom mesh. Sounds like undesirable
I
behavior.
thought at one point we had changed it so that the if you've got an animation override a position override defined, that would get applied, over an effect from a scale or from a slider. So if you move a slider, then it shouldn't cause a translation change that overrides that. It's possible that there's some kind of unexpected interaction with animations there. If you have a case that repros this, and you could file a bug, that would be great. I'd be happy to take a look at it.
All right.
The intent is that these things get applied in a kind of a globally consistent way. That you have the effect from the skeleton initialization, then you have the effect from sliders on top of that, then that gets superseded by joint overrides, if any, and then the effects from animations get applied on top of that. And if it ever does get in a squirrely state where that's not consistent with that, which I think is probably still possible, you should always be able to get back to the correct state with the reset skeleton. Which does actually apply things in that order.
Is there a place right now where we can get the new facial bone changes?
Well, I mean, if you've got the current version of the project viewer, that should include the latest facial bone
I mean,
changes.
a day file.
Yeah. I just posted the latest of the Collada files in the Bento testing page. So there's a male and a female there. Those now have mesh eyes as well. Now that there's a scale for mesh eyes, so that you can also use sliders with those. And there's also the Bento Angel, which is similar idea, although I don't think it has eyes, and it's got the wings and tail. In terms of seeing things stretched out too far, yeah, since the last project viewer update, there are changes to the skeleton, so it's entirely possible that older content, really pretty much all the content out there right now, is going to have some glitches in the in the face or in other areas, because the definition of the skeleton has changed. So yeah, unfortunately, some of that is going to have to be updated at this point. Our goal is not to make any more changes. We're not trying to make things any harder for people than than necessary, but that is a side effect, unfortunately, of having to do these kind of late in the game updates. There's been a bunch of changes to the face. There's been changes around the eye, trying to make the alt eyes hopefully more useful. They're now parented to the face root instead of having the same parenting as the original eyes. We did that because the original goal of having the alt eyes was to allow you to override the animation of the eyes, but it turns out you can do that anyway, so it wasn't really useful. So now with the alt eyes, they respond to the same sliders as the eyes, but they're parented differently, and the hope is that they would be more useful for particularly for people trying to model kind of non-human avatars. We've also changed the viewer so that it animates both the original eyes and the alt eyes, so you should be able to get consistent behavior with kind of locking on visual targets either way. Yeah, Horley? Is anybody hearing me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Horley says Tiger's avatar isn't Bento, yet it's deformed. Okay, if that's the case, then that's not a good thing.
Oh, he was just telling this to me and I am a second ago. Ironically, this avatar uses attachment points on the eyelids, which is exactly what I defended on the forums the other day. So I missed one in my list.
Oh.
So there are 2 avatars that use attachment points on the eyelids, as far as I know.
Uh-oh. So is that something that's fixable by going in and changing the position of those attachments?
It ought to be if you go in and change the scale of the eyeballs, but I am not on the Bento viewer right now, so I can't see it to fix it.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's something we'd had some discussion about in the forums.
Forden is on the viewer, so if you would like to go in and change the scale of the eyeball and make sure it can fix, that would be good.
I'm not sure what the rationalization for the alt-eye bones being, I guess, kept on the eye job there. The intent is that they would be more useful for somebody who's modeling a non-human because now they're on the face root. I know there was a certain level of enthusiasm for trying to basically make them be called eye bones, but not actually be eye related, so that they would be easier to adapt for other things. And we're not really going in that direction. Obviously there's a whole lot of bones in the avatar, and I hope that anybody who had other intentions for the eyes could find some other bones that they could use. Was there a problem with using the regular eye bones for non-humans, though?
It's the parenting. We can't change the parenting of the original eye bones to be the face root because it would break old avatar content. But with the alt eyes, since there's not an established convention for them, it seemed like it was safer to change that.
Oh, so it's for people who are moving or translating the face root bone.
Yeah, basically. And we're also trying to make them a little more eye-like by having them actually be affected by the same default animation as the eyes. Again, you can override it, the same mechanism, but if you don't want to, then you can have eye tracking with your dragon or whatever that's using the face root based eyes. I mean, hopefully it'll be a bit simpler for people who don't want to model humans. Of course, with the human heads, there's probably not any particular reason you don't want to just use the regular eyes, and the alt eyes may not do anything for you. So yeah, so there's definitely going to be some disruptions this week. We knew that changing the skeleton sliders this late in the game was going to be somewhat disruptive. I hope there's not any fundamental showstopper issues. If this business of scaling the eyes really turns out to be screwing a lot of people up, then we may have to talk about that. But just let us know how that goes. If that's something that you think is recoverable and fixable, or if it's really going to screw up a lot of content. Also, the people who had concerns about the avatar vertical positioning changes, if you want to file any or attach to any existing issues any reference content or send stuff along through other channels, email it to me or whatever, that'll be helpful. It's always good if I have something to actually kind of run through the system to make sure we understand what's going on with it.
I think you may already have a copy of this avatar, but I can send it to you again with the involved animation.
If it's the original Wyvern, I think I do have that, so I can give it a shot. If I have any trouble reproing the behavior, I'll drop you a line.
Okay, yeah, I don't think the animation has changed since that upload, so yeah, it should be okay.
I'm playing right now an example of what I was saying earlier with, if you make an animation, you can translate a single bone by moving it, and you can rotate other bones, but if you export that animation with translations, then all of the bones are going to translate. So right now I'm wearing a short avatar with custom joint positions, but of course these wings were animated with the default skeleton with normal-sized limbs. So when I play this animation, which needs translation on the wings, but only has rotation on the arms and legs, you can see my arms and legs get bigger to match the size of the regular default skeleton. So that's what I was saying earlier. If it's updating if it's updating your height based on translation in the animation, that might be what's causing Aki to move all around, because obviously she needs translations for that dragon. But if it's seeing each frame of that, even when it's not actually translating the skull, it might be like making it go yawner.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the bone position doesn't change, the calculation for the height isn't going to change either. So I mean, just the fact that there's a translation defined in the animation isn't a problem. It's really only if the value changes over time, right? If it just stays fixed, then I don't think you're going to see any. I don't think you're going to see any kind of unexpected behavior as a result of that.
Saying that the flight animation animates your arms and legs, right? In addition to the wings.
Sorry, what was that?
Your flight animation, you were animating the wings with translations, but you were only doing rotations on the body.
Yeah.
So which flight animation?
The one she just did.
The one I
She had
played with.
translation animations on the wings, but she only had rotation animations on the body. But since the whole animation gets tagged with joint positions, then it's causing her arms and legs to honor the joint positions in whatever animation file she had. So since she animated the wings on a skeleton that wasn't the short avatar, she suddenly becomes a tall avatar.
Taking the wings off, fix the eyes. That's interesting. You could get that if there was a position override for the eyes inside the wing object, but I'm not sure if that's what's going on.
You can just remove the translation from the dope sheet or action editor in Blender.
You can either remove it or just hit the little microphone next to the listing in the dope sheet, and that will temporarily mute it.
So do you say that even muted translations are exported by Avastar? Or
No, I didn't know I could do that, so I'll have to play with that. So that may very well fix that issue.
I just figured it out last week. Yeah, I just figured it out working on these bento heads, so.
I have a quick question, Veer.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure I wasn't stepping on anybody. Okay, so I know before Bento, rigging to the attachment points was not supported by Linden Lab, and there was always that warning that it could be, broken at any point. But after Bento, is rigging to attachment points, rigging to attachment points for animations, is that going to be considered legitimate now? To where in the future you won't want to, Linden Lab won't want to do anything that might break that?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I mean, obviously we never want to break existing content. People are very invested in their existing avatars, whatever combination of technology was used to produce them. I certainly don't think that waiting to attachment points, given the current skeleton, is really optimal. And the problem isn't so much the fact that you're waiting for the attachment points as the fact that you're, usually you're doing that in the context of moving the attachment point someplace that has nothing to do with where it was intended to be for purposes of being used for attachments. We'd like the attachment points to kind of be in an appropriate location for people who actually want to sort of use them as labeled. I don't think it's likely that we're going to be disabling that, but we're not making a special push to encourage it either. I think it's it's something where I would hope, given the current setup, there are going to be better options available a lot of the time. And if you know of cases where there's not better options available, it's worth bringing those up.
So your plan now is not to disable the ability to rig to attachment points? Because I thought at the beginning of this project that was where you had intended to go.
Well, originally we had intended to do that, but we got a tremendous amount of pushback that this was going to be, destabilizing to existing content, or at least the ability to maintain existing content. So we haven't really been pushing any changes along those lines recently.
That is good to know. I can inform my customers that many of my avatars will not continue, or not end support anymore.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking about the one use that would be really good to rig to an attachment point, since we were working on the alt eyes. for the last week or so was that I discovered, we were debating for the last couple of days, do we scale the alt eyes or not? Do we disconnect them from the sliders so that people could use them for, say, hair animations? And I discovered that if you wait to the alt eyes, it disables basically the scaling. So say somebody was doing a non-human avatar, but they didn't want the eyes to get bigger or smaller. They could rig the eyes to the attachment points for the alt eyes, and the eyes would rotate with the alt eye bones and everything, but they wouldn't scale up bigger or smaller. So you could fix the eye of, say, a horse or something. If you didn't want the horse's eyes to get bigger or smaller, you could just rig it to the attachment point for the alt eyes. And I thought that might be a good case scenario. So you could disable the eye sliders by using custom joint positions. Obviously, a horse's eyes are going to be in a different position than a human, so that would disable the eyes getting closer together and farther apart. And it would also, if you rigged to the attachment points for the alt eyes, it would disable the scale getting bigger or smaller, but the eyes would still point to wherever your avatar was looking, with the mouse thing. So you would get all the benefits of having eyes, So it is.
It seems like for some of those use cases, just having a static mesh that was attached to the alt eye attachment points would give you the same effect, right? If it's a static mesh, it wouldn't scale, but it would still move because it would be because its parent, the parent of the attachment point would be getting rotated, right?
Right. You could do it either way, or you could wait. Say you wanted the eyelid area around the eyeball itself to move with the eye. You could wait that area around, the eyelid area around, say, like on a horse or something like that, to sort of be influenced with the eye moving around. But the eye itself, yeah, you could use it as an attachment point as well, and it would have basically the same effect.
Yeah, because we did make new attachment points for the alt eyes that are 0 offset from the alt eyes themselves. So stuff should sort of track along there. Normally.
Awesome.
All right. Well, yeah, I know a lot of these discussions may seem a little theoretical if it's things that people haven't had a chance to try out yet, or haven't had a chance to try out with the new viewers. So obviously we'll be watching the comments as things come in. Now that this thing is out there for testing. Okay, well, do we have any other questions or discussions for this week? So I'll be out for the next couple of weeks. I'm assuming that we'll just go ahead and cancel this meeting. If if you guys feel like it would be useful to just have a kind of a predetermined time to show up and kick issues around, that's fine. I'm not obviously people can show up here anytime they want, but if you think it would encourage that, to just leave it on the calendar and say it's just a kind of an open discussion session, I could put in a note to that effect. Do you have any preference whether you think that's useful, or should I just cancel them for the next couple of weeks? Yep.
I'd be willing to come. Yeah, I'd be willing to come and if anybody had questions and whatever.
Okay, well, I'll just put a
Yeah.
note to that effect in the user group, and it's just just an open discussion session if folks want to come by.
Yeah, I'd like to come.
Are these latest viewer changes live on the main grid now?
They're supposed to be. We did the push earlier today. I haven't actually tested it.
I got the current viewer from the alternate viewers page.
But has anybody tried uploading a content rig to the new bone? That would be the test. All right. Well, there are 3 models linked to on the Bento testing page. If those guys will upload correctly, then everything is working. I'll give it a shot later today, but I haven't had a chance to try it yet. To the best of our knowledge, it's all working now.
Question
All
I
right,
had,
well, if
are
that's,
there still 2 sliders available on the avatar?
Sorry, I didn't get the whole question. Is what sliders available?
Are there 2 sliders available on the avatar, like the shape sliders? I heard that there were 2 open slots available. The case.
Not sure what you mean by open slots. We have, there are some sliders that aren't implemented with the Bento bones, but there's not really any extra sliders, added with Bento. If that's the question.
Guess maybe I just misunderstood something, but yeah, I was led to believe that there was 2 slider slots available in the the possibility of adding 2 sliders to the shape controls.
There have been some proposals about possibly adding additional sliders, where it's been. There have been proposals for any number of different ones to be added, but we don't really have any kind of expansion plans for Bento itself. If we did any additional sliders, it would be a later project.
So.
So, I will try to make it in the next couple of weeks. I obviously don't have Vera's depth of knowledge on the subject, but I can at least listen and maybe take notes.
Yeah. Okay, well, that'd be great. Yeah, if anybody wants to pass things along from these meetings, it's fine to file bugs or follow up in the forum thread. Anything where we can capture it in some kind of persistent forum would be good. Can anything be done for the fat slider? There's really not anything you can do for the fat slider. The problem is that that's morph based, right? It's something where on the system avatar it's implemented that way, and to get something equivalent, with Bento we would need to have a whole bunch of additional joints added to the body, kind of just for the purpose of animating the fat, I think it's kind of hard to cost justify that. In any case, it's definitely not what we're doing based on the design that we finalized on. The neck joint weights. I guess I don't understand the question about the neck in particular. Is this a problem with getting kind of heads and bodies to line up? Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think anything's happening with the fat sliders. I just don't see any way we could do it with with kind of Bento as it's currently scoped.
that fat slider does work a little bit with fitted mesh, though.
Does it? Or maybe it moves some of the collision volumes. So if you're rigged to those, you're going to see at least some sort of, kind of large-scale deformations, not really detailed stuff. Okay, well let's wrap it for now. I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks, and I'll update the meeting notice so that people know that they can, feel free to come by during the regular time slot.
See y'all then.
Yeah, see y'all later.
Feel free to hit me up when you have the new app.
Cool. Thanks, Fear.
Cool. Thanks, Fear. Have a great vacation.
Oh, thanks. Yep, have a good one, everybody.
Yeah.